Gentlemen, let's broaden our minds.
The truth shall set you free.
You can't handle the truth.
We came, we saw, we kicked its ass.
That's not how the Force works. Oh, really? You're cold?
I'm gonna make him an offer again.
I'd buy that for $1.
Oh, I'm sorry. Did I break your concentration?
Hasta la vista, baby.
I don't have friends. I got family.
Surely you can't be serious.
I am serious. And don't call me Shirley.
I can do this all day.
Yeah, I know. I know.
Hello and welcome to the Crazy Control Movie for joining us for this spoiler review of Venom, Let There Be Carnage. Joining me on today's podcast, we have a familiar face of Alex, but brand new to the Creative Control Podcast, very first appearance, and who's just joined our WhatsApp group and to the team is Lee. Welcome, Lee. How you doing?
Thank you. I'm good. Yeah, glad to be here. Long time viewer. So yeah, now joining.
Yeah, long time viewer, first time caller.
Yeah, that's it. Yeah, that's good. Yeah, looking forward to it. Yeah.
Well, thank you very much for joining the team. Really appreciate it. And we're always looking for like new people to appear on this and stuff like that because availability is tough to get everybody who's available. And everyone loves different things. Everyone's passionate about different things. And one thing I can definitely say is I'm very passionate about Spider-Man and Venom. And oh, this movie hurt. Okay, so as I said, this is spoilers, so we're going into full spoilers because it's been out for a couple of weeks now. It's been out in America for a couple of weeks, in the UK for about a week now. So, there's nowhere to hide from it. And if you don't want to know spoilers, then, click off this review until you have seen it. So, first impressions, I'll go first. I fucking hate this movie. I just... Let me be a little bit more constructive with this. So, Venom 2 picks up, obviously, after Venom 1, where Eddie and the symbiote are still trying to figure each other out. They're still trying to really bond and create a relationship. And we have a situation where they're not getting along. There's a kind of resentment. So he resents the symbiote for kind of interfering in his life. Symbiote is upset with Eddie because he won't allow him to eat people. And he's only surviving on chocolate because there's something in chocolate that kind of keeps him going.
Chickens.
Yeah, chickens. That's it. Chickens and chocolate. So, he's like, you promised me you would eat bad guys, and he's not really allowing him to eat anybody. So then we have Cassius Clay.
Yes, Cassidy.
Cassidy. And I don't know why I keep saying Cassius Clay, and it's like that's Muhammad Ali, isn't it? So it's like it's so not the same person. So you have Cletus, and basically that is Woody Harrelson, and I'll come on more to his performance and portrayal of the character. But we saw him at the very end of the first one in a post-credit scene. He's had his hair adjusted because that wig at the end of the one was actually probably a little bit more comic book accurate. It kind of looked crazy. Now he's got some weird side cut with a long fringe. I don't know. It's just bizarre. And he's in prison. He is a notorious serial killer, and he reaches out to Eddie Brock because he wants him to publicize, his stuff. Get his name out there. And Eddie ends up finding out where the bodies are buried. Basically, his Venom sees some stuff that he scribbled up on the wall in his cell. He finds out where from those the clues leads to where he's buried the bodies, and as a result, he's going to be put to death. So, in terms of that moving forward, so that creates obviously the issue between Cassidy and Brock. In terms of, he sentenced him to death. Once he's in the prison, Cassidy bites him, and that leads to the Venom symbiote being injected into him, which ultimately creates Carnage. Pretty straightforward stuff. And then we have this whole side plot with Shriek and the girlfriend of Carnage. It's all just shit. So I'm just trying to get through this bloody summary. So Cletus Cassidy. So he's, as much as this is called Venom, Let There Be Carnage, Carnage is actually not really in this movie much at all. It's a very short runtime, so only like an hour and a half. But So it's quite fast paced. You know, there's not a lot of time for exposition and stuff like that. But the story and characters just don't make sense to me. So before we go into more details, Alex, what was your general feeling about Venom: Let There Be Carnage?
I'm the same as you, mate. I mean, growing up reading comic books, Venom's like in my top 5 favorite comic book characters. I didn't really like the first Venom movie, as much as I love Tom Hardy, fantastic actor. All the actors involved, fantastic. But I never knew how you do Venom without Spidey. It's as simple as that, really. You just can't really separate it. And so, this movie just was kind of more of the worst parts of the first movie, essentially.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, there's some parts in the first one which might be a little bit more forgivable, but this seems to just take everything and just ramp it up like the cheese factor and stuff like that. I don't know.
The best way to describe it is it's just stupid and silly. I mean, I chuckled a few times, but you chuckle at like silly stuff. Almost like if you're out on the street and someone falls over, that's the sort of level that it is. It's just like
level of humor. Right.
You just can't help but chuckle at something stupid. It's just that's kind of all it was. And that's just
Lee, did you read any of the comics growing up or watch the cartoons or anything like that? Were you a big Venom Spider-Man fan?
Not the comics. No, I've not read the comics, but I was a big fan of the cartoons. And Venom and Spider-Man sort of go hand in hand, which is what's made this difficult, I think.
So what did you think of the first Venom movie?
It started off all right. I quite liked the way that they were building up. I don't know the guy's name, but obviously the villain of that movie.
Riz Ahmed's character.
I think that was good. It was sort of building up, and you thought they could be creating something here, and a bit like this one, really. It's like the villains just sort of they just get dealt with so quickly. It's like done with one movie. I mean, it's like say, Let There Be Carnage. There wasn't really much carnage, and a few fight scenes, and that's it. It's done. That's why I think it's a little bit short-sighted.
Absolutely. Like exactly like you say, it's like Let There Be Carnage, but we'll kill him off in the same movie, and it's just like, why would you do that? It's like if you're trying to create this universe, Sony, you've got to keep some of these characters around, and Carnage is such a big part of that. It's madness. In terms of the casting, I think that Woody Harrelson, for me, it was a very cheesy villain turn. It's like he was told it's a comic book character, and so then he overacted it. I don't know if he ever read any of the source material or whether he's a fan or something like that, but if he had, he's obviously done his own interpretation of it. It's not what I would have expected, from that character. The character choices seem odd. So like he's reached out to Eddie Brock to highlight career. Eddie's failed at this point. There's no reason for him to pick it. If anything, what should have happened is Eddie should have been the one who put him in prison in the first place, and that could have just been established in the first one, or said at the beginning, Eddie put me here, and that's why he's got this fascination with Eddie. And even though he's had this fall from grace, he still hasn't forgiven him. It didn't need to be Eddie doing something in this movie to try and turn him and create something, because it was just too short a thing to happen. And talking of Eddie Brock's character, there's zero character development in this. I don't know why we're supposed to like Eddie Brock, what he's about, who he is, what he's doing. He's supposed to, in the comics, he's this reporter, has a fall from grace, but there was no character arc for him in this movie at all. He fought with Venom, and then he had to kind of make up with him, but he was sorry but not sorry to fight Carnage at the end. It was so bizarre. I don't know what you guys thought of Eddie and the Cassidy relationship.
Yeah, same. I mean, it was just like you say. At this point in the story, we've established that Eddie Brock is basically washed up. He's he's no longer this ace reporter that even if you can call him an ace reporter in the first movie. I mean, it wasn't. You saw him on a few clips of what looked more like a sort of online news outlet type sort of situation.
What was the time frame between the films? So was there a time frame between the two?
I don't think don't think it was
Not much. I don't think it was established, but maybe a year, if that. I don't think it was
I wouldn't
6
have thought
months
it
to a
was
year.
a huge amount of time. But yeah, there was just you wouldn't reach out to Eddie to be like, oh yeah, I need you to tell my story, to get my story out, because who's going to be interested? No one would read anything that Eddie Brock's putting out.
And Eddie never acted like a reporter. He never questioned him. He never, if you got a reporter and criminal behind bars, you expect that little bit of Silence of the Lambs, that kind of repertoire between. It's like Eddie's like, I just don't want to be here. I don't care. But then he managed to get his story on the front page. With no actual content.
If anything, you could think, well, okay, if Cletus is this big bad serial killer, it would almost be Eddie having the story and the interview could almost be what he'd actually be interested in it to make it
fighting for it.
To get his career back on track. He could be like, shipping it out to all the papers saying, well, look, I'm back. I've got the story that no one else can get. But it didn't even sort of play that angle either. It was just
absolutely. It should have been him struggling to try and regenerate his career. Absolutely that, so he can get back on top, fighting with him to try and get that story, and then backstabbing him by revealing his details, and then that creates the conflict more than the symbiote figured out where the bodies were buried, and he kind of told someone about it.
The other thing he could have done, I suppose, is Carnage could have been the story where Carnage is out there, doing whatever, and that's the story that he's chasing it down. That the destruction of Carnage, or whatever's going on in the background. That that he's the reporter that's going out to find out what's going on with it, and then it turns out that's Carnage, and then there's
it could have been a bit more like detective work, him showing up all the crime scenes and kind of figuring out what's happening here. So maybe there is a crossover between him and Cassidy, but he sees all this death and stuff, but he doesn't realize that Cassidy's taken on the symbiote. He's pointing out by all the detective work. I mean, look, we're sitting here and we're just coming.
Don't say detective work when he turns up what was it, the orphanage or whatever, and just
he turns up to an orphanage and there's a tree with a heart with some initials.
I got it. Telling me you didn't break in and go through files and photos. And
saw this huge, you saw this huge man, and I was like, oh, here we go. He's going to do some investigative reporting. He's going to go in there. No, he looks some initials on a tree outside. I was like, fucking hell, what is this?
And he didn't even figure out who Shriek was. He was on the phone with Stephen Graham's character, who goes, "Oh yeah, well those initials belong to I can't remember Francis somebody or whatever." And because I only know her because I'm the one that shot her or whatever and killed her, and supposedly killed her. And he didn't even figure out who she was anyway. He came up with these random letters. It's just
absolutely. And I understand they wanted. They didn't need to create the conflict between Cassidy and Carnage for Venom to win. And I didn't like the fact because Cassidy and Carnage loved each other. They wanted to be together, but they created a disjoint with them because they had to show that Venom and Brock were and they forced that narrative. And it's like, no, Brock and Venom got on. That wasn't an issue because they had the mutual thing for Spider-Man. There's nothing mutual in this universe that brings them together. And they had to make Carnage that factor to bring it together, which is just the wrong way to do it. The way that I saw Cassie being played is if you think of Matthew Lillard in Scream, that's the kind of creepy serial killer that I wanted for this kind of character. I think that would have been amazing casting back in the day, Matthew Lillard, to do that. But yeah, he just seemed all wrong for it. And he just wore these, like I say, weird haircut, weird outfits, very, very strange. And and at the end, it was just over so quickly. Carnage looked great, it looked great. It looked on point, and I was really pleased with that because, as much as Venom doesn't quite look the same without the huge white spider, he looks okay. But Carnage looked fantastic, and that's why it was a real disappointment that he just he bites his head off at the end, and it's like, okay, you're done. Very, very strange.
It's a waste of talent, isn't it? Really, like say Tom Hardy, great talent. Woody Harrelson, good talent. That's a good cast, and they could have done a lot more with the characters.
Yeah, you want to feel that Carnage can appear again, and look, he can potentially with multiverse. You just never know and stuff like that. We'll come to the post-credit scene in a sec, but and then obviously they tried to do this thing where Eddie and the symbiote take a break, And just actually before I go to that, the humor. Where did the symbiote learn this humor from? I just don't get it. Like this symbiote's developed this weird, sarcastic, slapstick humor personality, and keeps talking over Brody, over Eddie, like about his girlfriend, this, that, and the other. It was like they were. It was so bizarre. I've never seen that.
He's a loser on his planet too.
Yeah.
It was just mental.
It just seemed like a desperate attempt to be able to play humor into the movie, because as we wanted to see an R-rated Venom, and we didn't quite get that with the first one, and this one is obviously not going to be, it's going to be PG-13, so they're like, let's just ramp up the stupidness and the humor and just make it was a comedy, but not funny. You're laughing at it rather than with it. It was.
I think maybe for viewers that are not maybe familiar with the character, or they're seeing this as a one-off movie.
I'm sure it'll be fine for them.
Because the cinema, it was, people were laughing like in the cinema. Maybe like you say, might be laughing at it. Like I think we were.
No, they were.
Other people might be generally laughing at some of the banter between the two characters. But that's what it was. Kind of like
alien conflict funny. Exactly. It's not what we wanted, but I get the general audience probably.
I think that's why the first one made so much money, because again, for the uninitiated of the character, it's like it's a fun adventure sort of romp. Like you say, you got this. It's almost like buddy cop in that the two clashing personalities and that kind of stuff. And for people uninitiated with the character, it's just like, oh right, cool, and it's like. I don't know,
so then the symbiote went off and joined another bunch of people, and what was your thoughts on that?
Mate, when he turned up at that club or whatever, I was just like, got glow sticks around there. I was just like, come on, man.
When he picked up the microphone, I thought he was going to start rapping, and I was going to have a hissy fit in the cinema. I really thought he was going to drop it.
Even like, whether you like how they obviously brought the symbiotes to Earth in the first one without Spidey or not. Okay, they set their kind of rules for the universe in that obviously they say Riz Ahmed's character is somehow explores space and found these symbiotes. We don't know how, but it's fair enough. But it was like all the human experiments he was doing. Well, if the symbiotes weren't a match to the human bit, we don't know exactly what the parameters were, but they basically, the human died, and so okay. But now in Venom 2, like Venom's just kind of like jumping from person to person and not really, having any effect. I mean, I think a few people like seem to sort of like collapse as if they were sort of like exhausted, and he was like almost like draining their energy or something. But
exactly. So are you supposed to be laughing? So if they are dead, you're supposed to be laughing because it's funny that the symbiote's doing that, because the symbiote's trying to be funny whilst he's moving from character to character, but maybe killing people. But it didn't play off that way. And Michelle Williams, and I feel so sorry that she got caught up in this franchise. She just does so much better than this. But she ends up wearing the symbiote as well, so we get this little female Venom look. And
how does it work personality-wise? Because I don't remember, with Venom that with the personality interaction between the host. That's the other thing.
The symbiote had its own personality. It didn't matter who the host was; it was still the symbiote.
Yeah,
and that's not how. That doesn't make any sense. That's not how it works.
No.
I know the symbiote can kind of take over sometimes the host, but I don't know. It was just very strange. It was just a way again of just having the two separated so they could come back to create conflict. And there was no anywhere for the symbiote to go other than just go off onto these random people.
Yeah, that's like in the comics you always had sort of. To be fair, it's been a long time since I've read any Venom comics, but you did sort of have like the two personalities, and so, but. Which is, fine. They can do that in the movie, where it is kind of like Tom Hardy sort of, talking out loud to himself. It then, to me, it then just got stupid. Where every time like Venom sort of like comes out, and they've got to have like that face to face. It's just kind of like that just didn't seem.
I don't understand why they need to have that face to face. As
It's
long as you know that his voice is there, done the voice, then you don't need to really see it.
It just needs to be a Gollum thing. It could be a mirror thing. It doesn't need, but that kind of switch between the personalities. You could just easily have that, absolutely. And I don't know, the more it went on with the voice of Venom, I don't know, it just sounded like a fun Cookie Monster. I don't know, it was just, it was so weird. I wanted that, we are Venom, that kind of real sinister stuff, but it was just like, oh my God, we got to do that, Eddie. It was just like, what is this? This is so weird. I was just, oh, I don't know. It's just okay. Anyway, let's move on to the post-credit scene. So we have no idea whether this was filmed at the time or how late they put this into the scene, but
it seemed pretty late to me. But just because the film was just there's nothing, all of a sudden it's just bang, and it's like
so
all of
he's sitting in a hotel room watching a soap opera. Everything goes haywire, and suddenly he's in like the Bahamas in another room, somebody else's hotel room. The TV's on, and we have J. Jonah Jameson saying, here's your Spider-Man. Peter Parker is Spider-Man. Venom comes out with Eddie, and he's like, he looks tasty, kind of thing. And so now they're in the same universe. So the thought process is here that each of these key factors in all these different series are at the same point. So WandaVision, where Wanda is at the post-credit scene where she's going through the book at the end, trying to find her kids in sort of like another reality. That is at the same time as in Loki, where the branching effect is happening at the end with Krang. Then you have Doctor Strange, the Multiverse of Madness. Spider-Man No Way Home, and Doctor Strange doing that spell. So I think what's happening is when Spider-Man comes out and Doctor Strange is doing that spell, when he's talking about you're interfering with the spell, I believe he's talking to Wanda. Because he can sense her interfering with his spell, and that's what goes wrong. It's not that Peter's talking, he's just distracting him, but the trailer makes you look like that way, because that leads more into Wanda being in Doctor Strange 2 and her being a big factor. So that all plays out at the same time. That is when it happens, obviously, in Venom. So the universe shutters, and people move around into different universes. So now he's in that Tom Holland universe. Here's more questions. Do we think that Venom will appear in No Way Home? Because there is that very small clip in the trailer where Peter Parker's looking at the camera and he gets that shock from behind. It's almost like a swipe, where people thinking it could be the Lizard, but it could be Venom. Or do we say, because Tom Holland's kind of said this is kind of the end of the franchise with No Way Home in this trilogy, do we feel that Spider-Man is now going to shift more back into the Sony universe, and Spider-Man will appear in the next Venom movies as opposed to Venom appearing in the MCU? What are your guys' thoughts?
I would prefer to see Spider-Man come into the Venom rather than Venom going to the MCU.
Agreed. I think that's the way it's going to go. That's unfortunately that's my biggest disappointment really with the two Venom movies at the moment, because obviously from some of the rumors that are flying around at the moment, it sounds like Tom Holland has pretty much confirmed that No Way Home is like his last stint with his deal with Marvel.
Mm-hmm.
And so I'm expecting that movie to basically end with whether it's the other characters coming into the MCU just for that movie, or him going to their universes, whatever happens, by the end of it, I'm pretty sure that Spidey's basically booted out and is going to end up in the Sony universe.
I was going to say, do you think that at the end of No Way Home, we're actually going to get a resolution to the Spider-Man character going back into a different universe? Or do you think it's actually going to be wrapped up in Doctor Strange 2? Because Doctor Strange 2 is Multiverse of Madness. The multiverse is still ongoing. It's still an issue. So I'm wondering whether Spider-Man, because I think Spider-Man is due to appear in Doctor Strange 2. So I think they may have filmed that already. But it'd be weird that the Spider-Man character story finishes in Doctor Strange rather than his own movie. So, could it be that, at the end of that movie, he's just like, sorry, Peter, I have to close this window. And he's just like, all right, cheers. And now he's off in that other universe.
It depends, I suppose, if the other two are in it. If Tobey Maguire and what's his name?
Garfield.
Garfield, yeah. It depends if they're in the next one as well, because that could also, give options.
I just wish Sony had held off with like I say, if this deal was now ended, literally, if they had held off for like 2-3 years, they could have then had Spidey come back into the Sony universe and actually done Venom.
Spider-Verse proper.
I get, I get you can't do Secret Wars and Spidey going into space to get the black suit, but what they, as the problems that everyone has with Spider-Man 3, Sam Raimi's Spider-Man 3 is, at least they kind of did the Venom thing where it's okay, well, it's an alien.
I thought the Venom thing was good.
And it, and it came, and how it came to Earth was, was a nice little, sidestep around the Secret Wars situation. So, You could have
Yeah, I
done
mean, they
something
did the whole thing where he
enough.
bonded with Peter, he separated.
Absolutely,
You know,
you could
it
have done
made
a whole
sense.
three movies. Okay, first one is literally, what better way to kick off, Spider-Man in the new Sony universe than he's kitted out in the black suit,
Clone Saga, or a version of it. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
You could have done Venom properly.
Yeah.
In my
But
mind.
in the Venom films as well, it doesn't seem to be any sort of mention towards any other sort of MCU characters. There's nothing to sort of like suggest that there's a Spider-Man that's flying around. I mean, somewhere there's just no other reference to it at all. And then all of a sudden, it's like,
they mentioned the Daily Bugle, and that was pretty much it. And I think what happened at the time is Venom. When Venom was being released, Sony very much wanted that Venom to be part of the MCU, and I think Kevin Feige was just kind of dangling like, yeah, it could be, but no, we don't want this Venom. So I think they kind of dropped that Daily Bugle thing in to keep it there. But the fact that the way Venom reacted seeing Spider-Man at the end, obviously he's never seen him before. So the only way I can see it kind of working now is if Venom takes an attraction to Spider-Man and involved with Peter that way, then they split and then Eddie has him back and they create it retrospectively. But the fact that you've already had this relationship breakdown with Brock and Venom in this second movie is then just it's too repetitive. So again, if they just kept the bond strong in this movie, but suddenly Peter is the one that actually persuades Venom to take a walk, that would create a greater conflict than just not getting along because Venom can't cook breakfast.
You say, I'm sure I'm trying to think, didn't he say something like, "Oh, that guy," as if he did? Because the thing that bugged me about the post-credit was that when Venom was giving his spiel about, "Oh, let me tell you about all the things I know," like the way he was talking was as if all the symbiotes, like I'm sure he said across universes, i.e. suggesting across multiverses as well, all have some sort of like shared sort of knowledge.
Maybe shared knowledge.
For me, almost makes it sound as if they're trying to retroactively be like, okay, well, I may not be the symbiote that was attached to Spidey in this universe, but I've got like the memories and the knowledge of the one that was, attached to Topher Grace, and so I know who Spider-Man is. And it's almost like they're trying to create that conflict between Spidey and Venom without actually having to have it, kind of thing.
Yeah, that's right. He does. He says that guy, doesn't he?
Yeah, something to that effect. As if it's like, well, hold on a minute. How do you know who he is? And it just seems like a real short change way of being like, oh, okay, cool. When Spidey ends up in the Sony universe, we can have our back and forth because I hate you, but it wasn't really me that was attached to you. It was my multiverse brother.
The way we've seen Peter grow up though in the MCU, this Venom thing, we would have seen it. There's no way that story's happened and we haven't been told about it.
Yeah,
because if they tried to do that is fucking stupid. That would really freaking piss me off. So unless he's saying that guy because Venom, the symbiote, has seen an alternative version of that Peter Parker.
Yeah, that's what I think it's suggesting. Yeah, that's what I think.
And then recognizes that, then that's fine because then he might be like, "Oh yeah, I had a really great bond with him," and then he really tries to bond with this one, thinking maybe it's the same one, and then this Peter's like, "Nah, this ain't me, mate. I don't want you." After a while, so that's possibly the way.
Yeah, either way, they're kind of having to do things backwards. And I just don't know how it's going to work because the trouble is obviously even when in the first Venom they've already pushed this idea of him being the anti-hero rather than being a villain to start with.
Yeah. So who are you going to root for? Spider-Man?
How are you going to have are you even going to be able to have Venom sort of turn and be a villain in the Sony universe? Because why is Eddie Brock going to he's already sort of saying you can't even eat bad guys.
So now he's going to say, "Oh, okay."
He's already like the anti-heroes in effect. So if anything, it'd be, "Oh, Spidey, great. Let's team up instead." But
which is why if they hadn't ruined Carnage, then Venom and Spidey could team up to fight Carnage and other symbiotes that maybe spawn from it. But doesn't necessarily mean Carnage is dead. Maybe it's just Carnage is going to join with somebody else rather than it be Cassidy and stuff. So Cletus. But anyway, so let me hear your thoughts on the movie in terms of your scores. What are you going to give this movie out of 10?
Ooh, tough one. Maybe a 4, 5.
4 or 5? Okay.
4 or 5.
Yeah, I was going to go probably about 2.5 personally, just because of my connection to the character from when I was younger. It's just like this is just not Venom. So yeah, I'll probably 2.5.
I'm just having a look because I think I posted my review and I just want to double check. I give it a 3 out of 10. So I think that's because Venom Carnage looked quite good.
Yeah, that's where my 2 comes from, and the half is.
And I think the possibility of what could happen later, even though I hope it depends on whether they do it right with the post-credit scene. Is there anything else in this movie I enjoyed?
I think I gave my score just because I thought, well, it was getting a few laughs in the cinema. So, if you're going as sort of like if you don't know anything about Venom and you're seeing this as just a standalone, then
I can understand why people would have fun with it if you're uninitiated the characters. Yeah, because it's just it's a bit like going to see King Kong and Godzilla going and fighting each other. It's 2 monsters.
That's what annoyed me. It was like he's like, oh shit, a red one, kind of thing, and he's like, I'll let you eat all the bad guys you want. Okay, then I can fight him. I was like, Jesus fucking Christ. It's like talking to a child, just like, I'll let you have dessert if you finish your dinner. Yeah. Okay, then. It's like, I'll fight the big bad guy. We're going to die. It's just so bizarre. But yeah, I think the 3, because the way it looked, the post-credit scene, but there were probably a couple of times where I maybe did laugh because, again, it was kind of that stupid humor, and it was just like, if I don't laugh, I'm going to cry. So yeah.
I think if it wasn't Venom, if you took sort of the Venom character, it was another different character, but the same sort of premise, then you could probably say like a buddy cop sort of alien movie. You could probably say, it's fun because it's Venom. That's what everyone's got a problem with, because it's just not Venom.
That's a really good shout. That's a really good shout. If it was different characters, different set of circumstances, it could have been quite funny. But because of how we feel about that character, we're growing up, and what we want from that character. Insomniac dropped that trailer for the next Spider-Man game, and in that 3 seconds clip of Venom saying, we will, or we are, or whatever, that's better than those two movies. I'm so excited for that new PlayStation game. It's ridiculous.
I'm not a gamer, so I haven't seen that trailer. So
the PlayStation Spider-Man game is one of the best Spider-Man products for the last 20 years, including movies. It is so fantastic in terms of its story. If they lifted that story and put it in a movie, it'd be golden. That is a way of starting off a universe or picking it up halfway through, or even if they did it now with, the Tom Holland one and did that as the next movie, the way it brings in the characters and stuff like that, it could be phenomenal. So well written, really emotional, beautifully made. So, but yeah, maybe we'll see this, and Miles Morales has got to pop up at some point, live action, right? So, is he established in the multiverse somewhere in the MCU? Is kind of hinted at in Homecoming.
Does he come under?
Who owns
him? Is it still Sony because technically he's Spider-Man, or is it actually?
Yes, he comes under Sony characters, which is why you had Into the Spider-Verse, which was phenomenal as well.
Oh yeah, of course.
It's like Sony have all these other avenues with the games and the animated, but they just don't replicate it in their movies. It's the same with Warner Brothers. Their DC animation is fantastic, but they can't replicate it in their movies. It's bizarre. But anyway, right. Thank you very much for joining us for this painful review. I really appreciate it. But I had to vent and get it out there. Where can people find you on social media if they want to, or if you want people to find you on social media? Alex?
I'm on Instagram at Lex_Damon. I don't post very much, but I'm there.
No.
I'm on Twitter at Journey81. But again, I don't really post that much on there.
Okay. You can find me on Twitter at Kenan Talks Film, as always. And you can always check out our latest podcast on our YouTube channel, Creative Control. Please make sure you like and subscribe and share. It'd be very much appreciated. But if you want to listen to the audio version, we are available on 4 podcast platforms, from Apple to Google to Stitcher, Spotify, Audible. We're everywhere. So thank you very much again for joining us. And until next time, peace out.